Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you're here. We invite you to share in the chat as people trickle in your first name and pronouns, where you're joining from, and one thing you're feeling grateful for today. Welcome to From Isolation to Belonging, a journey in embodied mindfulness. I'm Christine, the Community Initiatives Manager at Arts and Healing Initiative, and I'm your host today. This program is presented as part of our monthly Hope series. Each session draws on the innate power of the arts to foster mental health and well-being. If you've previously attended a Hope session, welcome back. And if you're new, thank you for joining us today. We're really grateful that you're all here to create, learn, and grow together as a community. Our workshop today is scheduled for 1.5 hours, and we will be recording in speaker view so that we can later share this on our YouTube channel. Only whoever is speaking will be seen, and our breakout rooms will not be recorded. We really encourage you to leave your cameras on if you feel comfortable doing so. This topic in particular is going to be most effective if you're able to see each other, and we know that this active participation enhances the experience for everyone. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat box or use the raise hand function as we go, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions. And we also welcome the use, if you're interested, in emojis and reaction features throughout today's session, as we know this can foster such connection and community in our virtual space. If you are in need of tech support, please feel free to message me directly at any time during the workshop. I'll be here for you. So to get us started, we would like to begin with a land acknowledgement before we begin. We want to acknowledge the Tongva Nation, on whose home and land the unceded territory of Los Angeles resides. As we're reminded of our environment's vulnerabilities, we just hold respect and gratitude for the Tongva people who still consider themselves the caretakers of this land. By their example, we are reminded of our responsibility to our planet and to one another. So let's take a few moments together to reflect on and honor with gratitude the Indigenous communities of past and present on whose land that you're joining from today. I'm going to go ahead and post Natives Land Resource in the chat for you as well, in case you're interested in learning more. So without further ado, I'm so excited to have you join me in welcoming today's facilitator, Gabrielle Kaufman. Gabrielle is a board-certified dance and movement therapist. You can see from her bio, her amazing accomplishments and credentials. She's also part of our faculty for Arts and Healing for over 10 years. And we are so excited to have her presenting this wonderful topic to our community today. So please join me in welcoming Gabrielle, and I will pass it over to you.
Wonderful. First of all, Christine, thank you for troubleshooting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for gathering. As we kind of talked today about community and belonging, I don't know what I just did. All right, there we go. Push a button and you never know. It is really important to recognize that convening people is a skill, and it is something that takes courage, and it's also the ways in which we actually gather. We cannot gather if somebody doesn't do the convening. So to that end, Arts and Healing Institute as an organization, I give so much kudos and appreciation to you, but also to you, Christine, for being here, for gathering us, for kind of welcoming us together. So kind of with that spirit, I just want to bring us in and bring us together. And I love seeing faces. I think that, as you said, Christine, the nature of this presentation is about being in community. So the more being in community we can be, the more we can actually kind of foster what we're trying to do. I also want to tell you those floating emojis are a lot of fun. So with that, I am going to share my PowerPoint, and we're going to jump in. And I want to say in advance that most, if not all of the images I have used, I either have, no, I have permission to use, but I'll kind of give you a little story about them as well, because I think images should be kind of an opportunity and a jumping off point. So this image is a picture that I took when my son was very little of him looking out the window, but something about this image really spoke to me about how isolated we can feel.
I'm
So
so sorry to interrupt you, Gabrielle. I'm having a hard time seeing thing up on the screen, and I want to make sure that everyone can see along with you. Are others able to see? You see it? Oh, then something is on my end. Well, please continue. Forgive my interruption, and I'll make sure that I can see it as well.
yeah, please let us know. Okay, I can see. Great,
That's
fabulous.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I'll figure it out on my end. Please continue.
So I also want to give you all a little bit of background as to why this topic was of interest to me. I have been in the field of mental health for well over 30 years, and I started when I was 5. Just want to let you all know. But I've been doing this work for a very long time. And one thing that seems like a constant is the struggle of a sense of belonging. And it will also say that feeling a sense of belonging can really counteract a lot of mental health struggles. It makes a really big difference to feel that you are part of something. Conversely, I have seen, and I talk about this and use this language a lot, that isolation becomes like a steroid for depression. And the way I like to think of it is, if you are alone and you are feeling badly, the only kind of reinforcement you have is your own self feeling badly. You don't have another individual to bounce off of to give you a different sense of validation or belonging. It is just you. So that feedback loop is a very tight and painful compounding of depression. So I know you did a land acknowledgement. Mine's a little bit longer. So I just want to say there are multiple people that were living in this land. The Gabrielino, I like to say that because it's like my name. The Tongva, the Chumash, and the Keys people in what is now called Los Angeles. But why I'm going to connect that even further is that belonging also comes from feeling seen. So here we are in territories that were taken, and the people who were living here were not considered, were not brought into those decisions. They were just pushed out. And in those ways, they were not seen. And were not even given a sense of belonging to land that they had resided on long before the current people who are living on them. So I just really want us to think about that sense of feeling seen, and representation and acknowledgement is really an important part of belonging. So I'm going to read to you a bunch of quotes, and then I'm going to stop and pause and talk a little bit more about my journey towards this topic. I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up all alone. It's not that. The worst thing in life is to end up with people that make you feel all alone. What I want us to consider is that sense of isolation and loneliness is not confined to somebody who is singular and alone in the world. It's much more nuanced, and I'm sure all of you know that. We think of loneliness, and so I'm going to start with this quote. Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General of the US up until recently, gave this quote: "Loneliness serves a vital function by warning us when something essential for our survival, which is social connection, is lacking." So a number of years ago, I had the fortune of getting to hear Dr. Murthy speak. And when he spoke, first of all, he was the most poised, the most considerate person I had ever heard, as he came into a space that he knew no one, and really came in with a sense of curiosity and reverence for the space that he came into. But as he started to speak, it just was like firing in my brain. Of course, loneliness, isolation, something that we are feeling is really a profound impact on the world. And all of us coming out of the pandemic were able to sense that in a greater way. And there were some extraordinary things that happened during the pandemic in which we found ways to cope, we found ways to build community. I mean, I think about when we talk about the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, people didn't have Zoom coffee hours, right? Like, and so we had that advantage. But truly, what did we find during the pandemic, and what did it heighten about what we already knew? I think even about the language we talked about as opposed to physical distancing. What did we call it? They want to put in the chat. What did we say that we were, to keep ourselves apart so we wouldn't become infected? We didn't call it physical distancing. We called it social distancing. Thank you. Wow. It always hit me like, why did we call it social distancing? It was really that sense that I think that was a very profound insight into how we were all navigating a very challenging time. So I want us to think about this. Think about the idea of being alone in community, which is related to the quote from Robin Williams that we just heard. Think about a time in your lives. And by the way, you've got pen and paper. If you want to jot down any thoughts, feel free to do that. Think about a time in your life, whether it was many years ago or even recently, in which you were with others in close proximity and felt very, very alone. So take a moment to let that digest. And I would hope for today that we are going to have some sharing. So please feel free. You can either share in the chat or you can unmute and share. I'd love us to be in community together. So does anyone want to share a circumstance in which they felt alone in a community? And as we're waiting, I'm going to share a story from my own personal life, which was I suffered after the birth of my children from pretty bad postpartum depression. And I remember going into a lactation support group where I was having so much trouble with lactation, and I certainly wasn't feeling bonded and connected to my baby. And here I was in a room full of mamas who were going through this same thing I was going through, and nobody seemed to be struggling the way I was. And I felt so alone, so much more alone than when I had been alone in my bedroom with the baby. So what was that? That was that community wasn't really community in that moment for me. It was really reinforcement of my isolation and depression. Anyone else want to share?
I'll go.
Okay, thank you.
When my son passed away, I think the community showed up, but didn't show up, if that makes sense. So that whole isolation of people talking behind your back or, not trying to reach out to you because they didn't know what to say. And people that reach out just not knowing, how to connect. It felt more, I think, lonely for sure.
I really honor you for sharing that. I want to just, before we move forward, invite everyone to be honoring of what is shared today and to hold space for that. So thank you. Am I saying your name right? Purvi?
Thank you.
Thank you, Purvi, and very sorry for your loss. Anyone else want to share? Okay. If it comes to you and you feel that you want to share, you can also put it in the chat. So we described 3 different kinds of connections. There's the intimate connection. There's a sense of companionship, right? Oops, sorry, I skipped ahead. You weren't supposed to see that slide. And there's this collective connection. In a way, what are we doing today? We are looking at a collective connection, the sense of a greater community. But then there's that intimate connection. And intimate doesn't mean sexual. It can be, it can include sexual, but intimate, in my sense of an intimate connection, is really that idea that we are being present with one another and sharing deeply. And then companionship, which has a really important role is that sense of having somebody along the journey with you, or some being along the journey with you. It could be like this kind of companionship. So companionship can come in many different ways, but that's a different kind of and very important kind of connection. And then I want us to think a little bit about being alone. Think of a time in your life when being alone wasn't a problem or didn't create a sense of loneliness. In fact, loneliness is not necessarily this solitude, which can be a really sacred state. You know, some people will say, I went on a silent retreat, and that was the most connected and less lonely that I have ever felt, because I was feeling connected. I was feeling connected deeply to myself. So if anyone wants to share a time or a way in which being alone is not bad, please let us know. You can either unmute or you can put it in the chat box. I'm going to read what Marcia said. I hope I'm saying your name right. Because of my hearing loss, I often feel disconnected, even with a group of friends, and especially in large groups. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of real feeling of how distant it can feel when you're not connecting, when you're not getting everything that everyone else is, and you can feel quite left out. And then I want to think about introversion versus extroversion. My belief is that it isn't one or the other. In fact, people might say, when they see someone very publicly present and they say, wow, you are really an extrovert. And that person says, absolutely no, I am not. Think about performers. We see a performer get on stage, but we don't know what happens in the moments before they get on stage or what happens afterwards. What are they struggling with in that time frame in between? So I'm going to move on to, this is a slide that I just added because, and I think it was an important thing. I did like to invite us to draw on your own piece of paper a battery shape like this, which can be just a big rectangle with a little rectangle at the top. And I want us to think a little bit about this as a metric by which we can measure our social battery. What is a social battery? A social battery tells you how available you are to having a connection with another. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It is not bad to have a low social battery. It's only going to be a challenge if you have a low social battery and you are about to go into a social setting. It's not necessarily a good thing to have a high social battery, especially if you are going to go into a time when you want to be in your own space. So to recognize it as a gauge. So I'm going to invite you all to take a moment and look at your social battery and fill it up. Where do you feel right now? What do you notice? So take a moment on your own to measure your own current social battery. Okay. If you feel ready to share what that experience is like, go ahead. We're going to give us just a couple minutes to share with it. And is there anything about looking at this that was surprising to you? Does anyone want to share? Because I have a follow-up question, which is, should you find that your social battery is low, what do you do to recharge? What is there for you? What are the resources activities, ways in which you might recharge. And it can be really important for us to have that knowledge so that we know that we have that resource, whatever it is. So for some people, it might be, I like to take a walk that helps me to recharge my social battery. I like to take a nap. I like to call a friend. I like to journal. I find that just sitting in a quiet room with no sound feels really meaningful to me. So what are the ways in which you engage in recharging your social battery? And again, you can either put it in the chat or you can share on unmute. Hi, Camille.
Hello. Yeah, one of the things I've been doing a lot lately is when I get that way, I just start going through my life, starting from birth, whatever comes up. Anyone in my life who has helped me to be who I am today, who's given me love or even given me pain, but through that pain, I see who I am today as a gift from that. So, I can't pick up from it. There's so many, strangers. A person on the bus who just gave me this beautiful smile, whatever it is. I try to think of those things, and it brings me back to a state of gratitude.
So thank you, Camille. It almost in my mind, as you said that, I was thinking about the slide wheels. You just kind of go through a slide wheel of your life and you're looking through these images and saying, oh, these are people who have touched my life and what that means and what have I found. So I think that that's really, really very powerful.
It leaves me smiling.
It leaves, and I want to tell you, I don't know if you're looking around the room, it left many of us smiling.
Oh, that's nice. Great.
Yeah. Is there, can I actually ask Christine, would you mind reading some of the things that people shared in the
Not
chat
at,
box?
not at all. I'd be happy to do that. I see there's a lot of input in the chat. Um, Meditation and breathing to recharge. Jeanette shared. Nadine shared, I like to sit alone with a movie, show, or some quiet music. Tanya mentioned that they're not sure how to recharge their battery. Bobby says, I've noticed when my social battery is low is during high workload. I engage with so many people and talk. Energetically, it can be draining. There's another comment, deep breathing, acceptance, and a cup of tea outdoors. Also, another comment, being in nature helps recharge. And then I'm also seeing unscheduled alone time. My battery is low and I'm learning the importance of recharging. Mindful movement in any form is recharging. A long walk or a hike outside. Seeking solitude, meditating, hibernating. And then so another person contributed, my social battery is low because I can't relate to most people. Therefore, I gain social energy through social media groups and I take walks and listen to music. And I can keep going if you want. I think that's most of the
Yeah, I see someone play guitar.
Playing guitar, yoga, or going on a walk as well is another one.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
also want to say, somebody wrote about social media as a form of connection. And I think that if anything about what you've shared is the diversity. There is a diversity of ways in which we can recharge. And Tanya mentioned you didn't know necessarily how to. So maybe, hearing other people's ideas and trying them out, that might be a valuable pursuit. I encourage you all to look at this image of your social battery and play with it a little bit and check it out during the day. Just do a measurement. You can even do it visually just without writing it down and just go, my battery's about here. And that feels good for what I need right now, or I need more of one or the other. So to kind of keep a way to gauge. And then the other thing I would encourage you to keep going is that list of the ways in which you would recharge. Somebody was telling me she loves baking, and baking feels like a very fulfilling thing for her. So she gets engaged with the baking, but then that's alone. And then passing out the cookies that she makes is that sense of connection. So it leads her from this quiet, kind of introverted, introspective moment for her. And then she takes those cookies and uses them as a means by which she finds new connections and social, yeah, it's a kind of a social, dare I say, social lubricant, a way that she has something to give to connect. Thank you. And by the way, thank you, Christine, for reading the chat. It's so helpful to me. And Porvi wrote, calling my sister and my friend while I am driving. I was just talking to somebody today about how that driving time, we have found these wonderful ways to use as connection. But then there are some people who want that driving time to be quiet, to just sit in pure quiet. There is no right way to connect or to form our social, to kind of charge our social battery. But there are ways that may work for you, and encourage you as you create a list to make it multifaceted, because you may find that that one thing that you used yesterday is not going to work today. So that's an encouragement, a tool that I want you to build, want to invite you to build. What contributes to feeling lonely? So here are some things that contribute to that sense of feeling lonely. It could be shame, fear, self-doubt. This is a big one, feeling different. You know, think so much about how we as a society often push people away who are different. And so many of us can feel different. And what does that mean to us? And how that can cause us to retreat. Feeling a sense of unworthiness. Grief and loss. I notice sometimes in the grief and loss area that we can get into what I call almost the Olympics of suffering. So what I'm saying is somebody who's experiencing grief and loss might feel that their suffering is not as bad as someone else's suffering, so how can I share it? Or my suffering is so bad, you can never understand it. And it just alienates us from anybody who might have some kind of support or care to give. Fear, and you know, so much of the pandemic I talked about earlier, but that sense of working from home can contribute to feeling lonely because we are not meeting at the water cooler anymore. So what are we doing to find new connections? And as we talked about earlier, social distancing. Feeling misunderstood. And I want to talk about this in some ways as we bump up into some of the political differences that we are experiencing globally right now, and how feeling understood can help us feel like a sense of belonging. So what do we need to do? I think what we need to do is to take the time to be present and to be curious, even if we share different perspectives. We do not share the same perspective. What do we need to do to be present and accepting and learn about the other? I mean, I think even language and cultural differences. So just yesterday, someone was talking to me about meeting new people who stayed with them who do not share the same language. And they were in the home together, and they recognized how much deeper their connections were without sharing the same language. They had to navigate a way of connection that it wasn't kind of superficial. They had to figure out how to communicate their needs with one another. And those language differences kind of offered an opportunity. But in so many cases, language and cultural differences can really cause us to feel alone. A loss of a job, a career, an identity, discrimination and stigma, lack of services and resources, or lack of access to services and resources, negative experiences with others, or could even be a negative experience with a system of care or a system of any kind. You know, it could be you do not feel a sense of connection to the school your kid goes to, or the place of worship you once belonged to and felt very disconnected from. Chronic pain contributes to loneliness. And I think chronic pain is another one of those suffering moments of, I am in so much pain, I don't want to complain to you all the time, or you don't want to hear me complain, and it creates that distance. poverty, which again can help, can contribute to that feeling of isolation because we don't have access or we don't feel that we can reach out. And intimate partner violence, which often really perpetuates isolation. Often that partner that is a violent partner may even not allow the other person to reach out to others with whom they had a really strong connection at a time in their lives. And that just keeps the cycle of violence going. And here are some statistics. 1 in 3 American adults say they feel lonely 1 time weekly, and 1 in 10 they say they feel lonely every day. 39% of single adults share that they feel a sense of loneliness, and 13% use alcohol or drugs to ease their sense of loneliness. For some, their sense of belonging comes from family, friends, neighbors, and not really online communities, but for others, the online communities can really fit and fill in some of those gaps. And then, and this was part of the Vivek Murthy's studies, which I thought very powerful, was the lack of social support is equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in how isolation contributes to health problems. Living in isolation reduces our chances of survival, and social isolation increases the risk for premature mortality by 29%. Just let that sink in. Loneliness and poor social support have been found to significantly contribute to the development and severity of illnesses after exposure to viruses. And a lot of this was taken from people who have kind of long COVID symptoms, but also other viruses. Poor social relationships, social isolation, and loneliness can increase your risk of heart disease by 29% and the risk of stroke by 32%. And a smaller social network size is associated with an increased risk of type 2 diabetes and other diabetic complications, including heart attack and kidney disease. And among older adults, chronic loneliness and social isolation can increase the risk of developing dementia by approximately 50%. So these statistics are significant. Social isolation, and I think this is interesting, or even the perception of isolation, can increase inflammation in the body to the same degree as physical inactivity. And adults who report feeling lonely are more than twice as likely to develop depression as adults who report rarely or never feeling lonely. So let's take a moment. What makes you feel lonely? Take a moment in your journal, just a moment of reflection. We do not need to share, but I think it'll be important, and I'm going to invite you to take just 2 minutes to jot down what for you personally makes you feel lonely. Hmm. I think you said your name is Devo. Am I saying it right?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for sharing differences in core values. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, most of the time I would say faith-based. Raised in a Christian home. But when I was 12, uh, there was tragedy, and that caused me to question my faith. And I'm 62 now, so that's been more than 50 years. And my family still believes the same thing, Christian values. I think my sister understands. She says I was traumatized. Uh, but recently, this past December, just before Christmas, my brother passed away. And when I was there, they want to pray. And I can understand, their Christian values because I was brought up that way. But what they seem, for me, didn't seem to want to understand why I didn't want to pray with them. Or, uh, or join hands in prayer. I said, let me just sit in the corner or be in the same room, and I'll just stand silent. But I don't want to pray. So, uh, but that's probably the main issue. I mean, there are other things too. Social. People like social drinking and stuff, and I just don't do that because my family has an issue with that. And again, my sister is the only one who supports me on that. But my other uncles and nephews and nieces, they all want to push, and she'll be the only one that says, "Leave him alone. He doesn't do that."
I thank you so much for sharing, Diva. That was another kind of moment of vulnerability that I know we all appreciate. And you are right. It's kind of not feeling seen. And so that sense of not sharing the same values and not having what your values feel very core to you being seen or maybe even respected. It sounds a little bit of what you've shared. So you also mentioned trauma, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. I'm going to go to the next side of it, which is being more socially connected can improve stress responses and minimize the negative health effects of stress. And people with strong perceptions of community belongingness are 2.6 times more likely to report good to excellent health than people with a low sense of belongingness. Children and adolescents who enjoy positive relationships with their peers, parents, and teachers experience improved academic outcomes. And social support from friends and families associated with improved hypertension and diabetes management. Immersion in local community-based activities such as volunteering significantly increases the likelihood of unemployed individuals becoming employed, which I think is a really interesting thing. It's almost that sense of if we have a community to start from, we're much more able to go and kind of bounce to the next community. So in that same question, which is what contributes to your feeling of loneliness and isolation, what makes you feel like you belong? And if we think a little bit about what Devo shared, and I'm sharing what I would imagine would be a response to that is feeling seen, feeling respected. You talk about your sister. So what are the ways in which we can feel like we belong? So take another moment for your own self to jot down. What are the ways that make you feel like you belong? And Camille, I want to comment on what you wrote. I think burnout can really contribute to a sense of isolation. This is another list that I would like to invite you to contribute to over time, that it doesn't have to end today. This is just a kind of leaping off place. But if anyone wants to share or put something in the chat box, please do. So I'm going to move on. Oh, let me just see. Did somebody share? No. Hugs, smiles, hellos. And when I'm with people who understand and support me, sharing a moment of surprise, beauty, or awe, connecting with a close friend, and a genuine smiling given and received. Camille, you mentioned that, right? Like just even thinking about how a genuine smile can really make a difference. A cultural event. So keep the chat box going, and I'm going to move on to other topics. Again, here are some global issues that contribute to a sense of loneliness. Cultural clashes, language differences, political struggles, religion, different countries of origin, this collective unconscious. And here's what I'm going to talk about. When I say that, I think about we are all feeling a level of stress that I think is unprecedented, that I don't think anybody has been used to, or maybe you have been, but of feeling stress about the safety of the world, stress about the environment, stress about disease, stress about loved ones, stress about finances and jobs. And that kind of creates almost this stressful vibration that we may all be sharing. So there are these global and personal threats that we may all be sharing in this collective unconscious that I think contributes to a sense of loneliness. So I'm going to quickly go through some thoughts about social media, and then we'll move on from there. So I like to say that it isn't Facebook or Instagram, and it used to be Twitter, but I kept it on there, that I changed the names. It's Fake Book, Instagrown, and Twister. So why do I change it? Because I have to tell you that most of the things that I see on Facebook are not really authentically true. They're highly curated. They are somebody's perspective. They're telling you, I want you to see this image of me. We can look at how negative emotions like loneliness, envy, and guilt have an important role to play in a happy life, but they're big flashing signs that something needs to change. So here are some social dynamics that we're going to see on social media. FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. Competition, I have to be better than all of you, or you guys are winning at life and I am losing. The bullies, by the way, I think no one ever leaves middle school. We are still being bullied. Self-consciousness or judgment, I said the suffering Olympics, and previous losses and feeling misunderstood. So how many of you have seen these pictures of the happiest family, right? We are just so happy and so wonderful. And we see these pictures, and what I know comes up for me and many of the people that I work with is, why can't I be happy like that? Why can't my family be so wonderful and loving? And usually, by the way, when I see these, when I see my clients, they'll often say to me, oh my God, I hate my family. They treat me terribly. Everybody's disrespectful. And I just posted a picture on Facebook about how wonderful we are. So I want to let you know there's a backstory that we don't always hear. This is the other competition. What will I do with the trophies for my little genius? And then here you are at home and you are struggling with your own kid, your own self, your own life. And we get this sense of less than, or the best vacay ever. Look at I talked about with somebody this idea of seeing, if I see someone else's pedicured toes on a beach, I think I'm going to scream, right? Like we get that sense of feeling like everybody's life is better than me, and we don't get to experience that. Again, I'm speaking from personal experience. You may not have this same sense that I do, but I can see how, and I can see in the clients who come and talk to me, how social media can really contribute to a sense of isolation. This is a huge one, surrounded by all my favorite people. You see this on somebody's feed that you thought you were friends with, and you're not in that photo. And how does that make you feel? So social media can really serve us if we are very careful with it. We can find the TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook groups that meet our interests, that meet our sense of belonging, that tell us how to connect with one another. I think that social media can be wonderful when it has some positive anti-stigma messaging. And if we can set some time limits and boundaries, we can make social media work for us. And just kind of that remember not everything you read or see is real. So here are just some positive things that social media can do. Helping somebody feel seen on a day that's hard. Helping people talk more openly about mental health. And help people feel seen in a journey of struggling. On an educational level, kind of helping us to understand, oh, okay, some of these physical things might be part of my mental health, and they all connect. And also recognizing that we can have more than one emotion. So again, so much education that we can find in social media. And then the stigma reducing, I think, is really important. And representation really matters. And social media can be normalizing. Oh, I said the representation matters earlier, but here we go. Feeling that we can see ourselves in others. And then media can also serve as escape. What are the ways in which we feel that social media just gives us a chance? How many of us sometimes just scroll to unwind? Just recognize that it's a delicate balance. And then the next topic that I'm going to go into is trauma and isolation. How does trauma contribute to a sense of isolation? So there are several different kinds of trauma. Cultural trauma, an attack on the fabric of a society affecting the essence of the community and its members, whereas we as a whole culture can feel that trauma impacts us. War is one of them. It could be disease, can be one of them. Historical trauma, which is a cumulative exposure of traumatic events that affect an individual and continue to affect subsequent generations. I really find that the field of epigenetics is very fascinating, and it is the idea that through trauma from the past, it changes our genetic state. It kind of creates this intergenerational trauma that we are continuing to experience. And when a trauma is not resolved, it can be internalized and passed from one generation to the next. So you've all heard of the psychological responses to trauma, the fight, flight, freeze. Y'all familiar with that? But there are several more. One of them is fawn. Fawn is this idea that when we are in a trauma state, we are constantly trying to get somebody to not attack us by fawning. Fidgeting is that kind of sense of I can't sit still. And then I've added a few of my own. There are a whole bunch more, but I think that sometimes when someone is coping with trauma, they are going to reach to some of these. One of them might be feeding, and feeding can include alcohol, can include eating, can include seeking some kind of other way that feels almost like an addiction to cope. Focus, which is a really interesting thing, it's that somebody who can be hyper-focused. Can you either be hyper-focused on the actual trauma and not be able to move on from it and feel stuck in that place, or even focus on something else to the point at which the trauma is not even looked at? And then fantasize. I don't know if you've ever noticed somebody who might be struggling with a trauma and they are lost kind of in their own fantasies and in a different world. And they may even feel split off or disassociated because of their trauma, their response being that. Failure is a really interesting thing. Have you ever noticed that somebody who has experienced trauma gets into situations again and again and again in which they may fail over and over again? And it becomes, for some of them, psychologically a way of predicting an outcome. If I know that I'm not going to succeed and that I am going to fail, then I don't have to feel that I'm going to risk the trauma again. Fixating is this hyper-focusing in a way that I kind of feel like is almost like a broken record. Just keep going back to it over and over and over again. Folly is people who don't take situations seriously and are often using humor and laughter and comedy to cope. I mean, a lot of Comedians use trauma as their way to get through difficult situations. Philosophize. Somebody who comes to a situation of trauma and as opposed to feeling it, they just have theories about it and interpretations, and they stay up here. Flooding, forgetting, or F it, that sense of just, it becomes too much, their system shuts down. So I just thought it'd be an interesting thing for us to think about. As well, vicarious trauma is a change in one's thinking or worldview due to exposure to other people's traumatic stories or experiences. If we are able to do our work with suffering people and environments in a sustainable way, we must understand how our work affects us. And this is for all of you out there who might be working directly with individuals, and those individuals may be experiencing trauma.
Gabrielle, do you have a moment for a question that came into the chat?
Sure, and thank you for interrupting me.
Yeah, the question is, how do we know when these are normal learned responses versus trauma responses?
It's a great question. We often have to be curious. Where did this come from? Where did you learn this? How has this helped you? And by the way, a traumatic response isn't necessarily a bad thing. We talk to people, I have people that I've worked with who get into fight or flight modes, and we talk about how did that coping skill help them survive a situation they otherwise wouldn't have gotten through. So we value that trauma response. Laughter, for example. How did you get through the abuse of your childhood? Well, I found a way to laugh about it. I found a way to write funny stories about it. And you say, is this trauma response a learned response? Is it a helpful response? And you might want to say it's no longer helpful. And if it is no longer helpful, what do you want to do about that? So it isn't simply a trauma response is a bad thing. And it's not only simply that it's just a normal reaction. So always bring curiosity and explore deeper. Don't presume. Did that answer your question? I'm going to assume it did. If you want to ask more, please do.
There's a thank you in the chat.
Okay. So there is a theory that was created by Dr. Pauline Boss, where she talks about something she calls ambiguous loss, which I'm going to explain just a tiny bit, but it's a really important concept. She says, I intentionally hold the opposing ideas of absence and presence because I have learned that most relationships are indeed both. So ambiguous loss, and please get a hold of this book. It's really important and helpful. It came from the idea of unresolved grief. And I think when she originally started to think about it, it was really this idea of soldiers who were missing in action and who never came back, who we never got a sense of here is a body that we can grieve, but we were grieving. And so there isn't this closure or clear understanding, but what we are left with is this emptiness. And that emptiness can contribute to a sense of loneliness. Again, we get into this comparison. Well, you lost a child, I lost a child, but I never got to bury my child. Or I lost a child in utero and I never got to know that child. And we get into this sense of difference. And when we feel that my pain is so different from yours, you can't relate to it, I can feel quite lonely. So there's physical ambiguous loss, which is like adoption. I've lost my family of origin. I've lost my baby. I'm using the word loss. We know that that's a euphemism in and of itself. Miscarriage or stillbirth, abandonment, somebody who might be missing, or a natural disaster or catastrophe, or even war, can be these physical losses. And then there's the psychological loss. Think about somebody who has a loved one who's suffering with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, and how they are physically present, but they are not the person they used to be. And how mental illness can contribute to this ambiguous loss. I have lost my loved one to their illness. Brain injury or physical illness or addiction or depression, or even the dysfunction in a relationship. So imagine a couple who have been together for a very long time, sitting next to each other on their electronic devices and not connected. And imagine that as a psychological ambiguous loss. I have lost my partner, even though my partner is very much alive and very much present physically, but there is no connection. Ambiguous loss creates just another dimension in isolation. So what can we do? So we've spent some time talking about loss and isolation, but what can we do? How can we build connection and feel understood? Empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is holding space, is feeling understood. So I would like to invite us to do an exercise. And in that exercise, what I want us to do is, how many of us are physically present? I think we can do this all together as a group. I'm going to stop my share for a moment and see, can everybody see each other on the screen? Those of us who are present? Okay. So I want us to begin with a deep breath. And I want us to first do a stretch for ourselves. And expand, taking up more space. And I want to say, as we do anything in movement, adapt it to make it work for you. And if you feel willing, reach out. Here we are in this virtual space, reaching out. I am reaching out, and then you can call out somebody's name. I am reaching out to you, Tanya. Charlene.
Hi, Margie.
Amber. Ping. What happens when you feel reached out to? Anya. Devo.
Pervy. Kate.
Thank you. What did it feel like to reach out? And Kate did something I want to, will you show us again what you just did? He took some of those outreaches and brought them back.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to receive the outreach, take a moment to receive. Thank you, Jeanette, Kathy, Christine, Amber, Marcia. And hold it for a moment, because for this brief moment, we are part of a community. And the creativity of having a Zoom space that allows us to do this is exactly what we need to overcome isolation. It takes risk, it takes outreach, it takes being open to receiving, and it also takes creativity, because I think some of you are in different places in the world right now. And yet for the moment, we are together. So feel that moment, feel that togetherness. With your permission, I wonder if we could partner. Depeche Mode, thank you. I think that should be the soundtrack of what we just did. We're going to invite us to partner, and we're going to do an exercise we call mirroring. And then the point of this is to be able to be seen and heard. And again, the heard might be in a visual way. If any of you has any special adaptations you need, let us know, and we will work with you to make that work out. So what I would love is for 2 volunteers to start, and we'll show what this looks like. And I get 2 volunteers, please. And then everyone will have a chance in their own little breakout. And I might volunteer you if you're not careful. Okay, Camille, call it on you. And Sandra, would you be willing? Okay. So Christina's going to spotlight the 2 of you for us all to be witnesses, loving witnesses, please. As one person moves and the other person acts as the mirror. Sandra, would you be the mover, and Camille, would you be the mirror? Okay. All right. So we are going to witness this, and again, witness with love. And then we are going to go into breakout groups and partner with this briefly. Thank you so much. So if we could convey our appreciation to our very brave voluntold. And Christine is going to invite us to partner up. Determine between the 2 of you who will lead first and who will mirror first. And then after a moment, we will switch. So we're going to have this exercise will probably be a total of 4 minutes. And if you have problem getting into a group, let us know.
All right, I'm opening the breakout rooms now. If no one's in your room, if there's an issue, please just come back to the main space and we'll help you out.
Were there enough 2s?
Yeah, I think we're good. Let me see. Polly, maybe I can try to add you to a room. Here, let me see what's going on. Did we have no one in your room maybe? Tanya? Okay, let me see if I can reassign. Sometimes we have a little trouble with that. Trying to find a room. There we go. I'm gonna move you to a room right now. Thank you. See. Is there a way for you to, there we go. Okay, so MK and Polly, let me see. MK or Polly, is there anything we can do to support?
I just can't have my video on right now with my child. So
We get
okay. Would you still like me to put you in a room to talk with someone?
I can do it if somebody else is doing it, I can follow along, but just I can't have my video on right now.
So maybe be a witness just make sure everybody knows you're a witness.
Okay, I might be able to put you in with someone who's also on their phone. Let me see if I can do that. Let me try now. There's a few folks who I'm going to try to move around. Let's try that. And then Polly, are you available to join a room? Try that. Let me try also. Looks like I'm adding. One to a different room. There's no one in there. Okay. Gabrielle, I wanted to let you know, and first of all, I'm very excited. It's very wonderful, enjoying your presentation. I didn't want to let you know, I don't know what's going on tech-wise, but when I tried to get to the slide with the YouTube links with the videos, the links aren't showing up, and it's weird because I can see them in your slide. I don't know if I have an older version or something.
I
But
don't know. I'm gonna try and send you this one, but you know what? Don't even worry about it.
for any music, you're okay. Or you
Yeah.
could just send me the link it directly if you
I think
want.
that's what I'll do. I'll send you the
Okay.
link.
Okay. You can put them in the chat. I don't know if you see there's a direct chat I tried to start with you.
I didn't see it until later when I like had a moment. It is
It's hard to multitask all these
It
things.
really is.
And
And
oh, yeah. Zoom is doing a weird thing where it's like not integrating the screen, your PowerPoint screen with you on the way it looks on my screen. And so it's like kind of threw me. I was like, I can't see everything the way I usually can.
oh my
But
God. All right. So
it's gonna be
here's
okay.
some, and I'm gonna go to get a couple more.
Thank you. Okay,
Oh,
there's
thank
two
you.
there.
But you might not use those ones. This is the tree one. Oops, what did I just do? Don't move it. Okay. The tree one, and I'm gonna just mark it as
Upwork is the best tool to find and hire high-quality freelance talent. It's free to post. Upwork's AI will search through candidates for you and help.
There's that one. I'm glad we have this moment real quick to work this out. I was like, ugh.
I just do. All right, this is the tree one.
Okay.
See if that works. That's probably the next one we're gonna do.
The tree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me get that one up first.
Somebody back.
Looks like
It's
I
me.
think.
Hi, Gabrielle. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
So
Hi.
my person was one of our C trainees and she didn't come. So I waited a little while and I decided to just come back.
Okay, feels good. Okay, I got the three music pieces.
And then I sent you one last one, which is there's the tree and the butterfly. So there. Hi.
I just want to tell you, you're the best. Mwah.
Oh God, I feel like I'm like stumbling over my words.
Not at all. You are just as sharp as could be. I mean, just yeah, hardly anything. After you told me everything you're going through, I'm thinking, oh, poor Gabrielle, and I wouldn't know it. I would not know it.
Amazing. I
Yeah,
love you, Pink.
I love you too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How long has it been? Have we given people
It feels like, well, I was waiting for my person, so there wasn't anything going on.
I haven't been keeping time. I apologize. I was
I
focusing on
actually, I actually think it's probably a good time to bring people back because I felt like I was in the room for a while.
Okay, bring them back.
Okay, and it may take a minute for it to go out. So hopefully it'll give them a minute countdown. Okay. They'll have 60 seconds. Close it on, close arms. There we go. 60 seconds and they'll be back. Unless they come back early.
Okay. I remember saying to Christine, I'm not sure I can make it for an hour and a half. I'm like, what was I thinking? Hi. Welcome back. Sandra got to do it 2 times. All right. Well, welcome back.
Gabrielle, I wanted to mention that there was a comment in the chat that we might want to address with a technical issue of someone not being able to get into their partner once everyone's back. I think we have a few more seconds about 10 seconds before everyone fully
This is Bobby's message?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right, welcome back. If you want to, in the interest of time, there's more that I want to invite us to do today. So first of all, thank you for doing it and dealing with, sounds like there were a lot of technical difficulties. Welcome to 2026. And if you want to just put a comment or a short comment in the chat, I'm going to invite us to do that. And then I'm going to show us one other exercise that I had an idea that we could all do, but I think it might be a little limited. And this is what I call empathic listening. So I want you all to hold your hands. I invite you all to hold your hands like this. What have we created? What we've created is a holding space. When we are holding space for somebody, we are not taking it up for ourselves. We are being present and holding. So what I want to invite us to do right now is I want to invite several of you, although my fantasy was we could do everybody, so do this later, will share the story about their name, where their name came from or what their name means to them briefly, while we as a community hold space. So while that person is sharing, we will hold our hands like this. Does somebody feel like they're ready to share the story of their name? Again, please, for time, be brief, but let us know. Okay, Sarah?
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Sarah. It's Scandinavian, and it was the name that my grandmother gave me. And when I decided to change my last name after, a couple breakups, I took my grandmother's maiden name. So I'm Sarah Ulrich, which is totally of my most favorite loving grandmother.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you.
Who else would be willing to share their story as we all hold our hands? Capture.
Okay, Devo. My middle name is actually Devon, and I used to think it came from the singer back in the 70s, William Devon. But my mother told me, no, I was named after a great uncle. And that's why I used to go. But people tend to shorten my name to Devo because they couldn't spell Devon. Got used to it. So we go.
Thank you so much for sharing. Pleasure to get to know you. And can we invite one more individual to
I
share?
can go.
Okay.
So my name Purvi means east. It also means the one who comes first, but I'm number 6 of 6 siblings. So I don't know if that makes any sense. But yes, I do come from the east. So I guess the name works.
Sounds very nice. Thank you. And maybe you do come, for us, you come first. Okay. So since we don't have time for everybody to share, I invite you to take this exercise with somebody, whether it's somebody you know well or somebody you don't, and to listen. The goal is while that person is speaking, not to speak back to them, but to really be present and really listen. So with that, oops, my slides are all a little bit out of order because I was moving ahead. Okay, here we are, share. You can see?
Yes, we can see. We can also see the slides on the side. So we're seeing kind of the full view.
Okay. You can see it though? This is good?
There we go. That
Very
looks
good.
great. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
So again, this is this exercise that we just did. And the importance of that holding is there's no judgment, no interpretation, and no comparison, right? We are just listening. And that's when we kind of think about empathy, is that we are listening and being present. So belonging is inclusion, feeling a part of, and that contributes to a feeling of connection. So let's think about the idea of grounding in our bodies and becoming a tree. And we're going to do another exercise. And I want to invite you to the best of your comfort to find a place that you can ground yourself. If you're able, put your feet on the ground. If you feel like you want to and are able to stand, you can do that as well. And Christine, this is where it'd be nice to have some of the music. So if Christine is able to make the music there, we're going to take a moment to imagine becoming a tree. So as we get into this exercise, I want you to think about what kind of tree you might become. Our feet are on the ground. and we feel them rooted with the earth. What does it take to imagine that? Take a deep breath. And bring our imagery up through our legs and torso, feeling that they are the trunk of that tree. And our arms extend out as the branches. Our hands, our leaves, and our fingers are the fruit and blossoms. So connect to this tree and its journey to fullness and our sense of groundedness. And how do the branches reach out to other trees and connect us above? And then what about the roots in the ground? There are systems of roots that become connected to other roots. In fact, in some forests, the trees are all one organism. So for a moment, we are one connected root system in a forest of trees with branches reaching out and our fingers feeling the fruit of how healthy and connected and full we are. And even as the wind blows, we are resilient. How are our trees connected? The branches, are they reaching towards the light, towards the sun, towards nourishment, and towards community? Our torso is strong and steady and individual, and our roots hold us firm in community. And take one more moment to be the forest with one another and notice how it feels to be grounded in our bodies, be a tree, and be part of a forest that is connected. Take a deep breath. And if you feel compelled, tell us what kind of tree you are. And you can just put that in the chat. What else do we want to think about? We want to think about the connection. Empathic listening, again, listening without judgment. Breaking down barriers. We all have our differences, but if we can be curious and accepting, and we remove all of the isms and expectations, we can be more present to forming community. And I want you to raise your hand if you have no bias. Does anybody here have no biases? Exactly. We all have them. The goal is not to not have a bias. It is to know it and know when to put it away. And thereby we connect to this sense of hope. And social support is building constructive friendships and other positive connections that can help reduce isolation, the likelihood of depression, child abuse and neglect as well. When we're working with somebody, whether it's a client, a student, a loved one, never make an assumption. And when you're identifying resources and people, what resources are they really accessible to, are really available to, and who can we truly talk to? I like to think about when we're creating a list of supports, we don't have to have every support meet every need. Who do we call in an emergency? Who do we call to take us to a doctor's appointment? Who do we call to water our plants when we're out of town? So trust, nurturing, comfort, safety and security and love create community and belonging. it cannot be without those other building blocks. It doesn't work. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to one's self, which is that sense of we start here, we start with ourselves, we start with that self-love and acceptance. We can all fight against loneliness by engaging in random acts of kindness, like smiling at somebody as you pass them. I heard a story about somebody who was cut off by someone on the road, and what they decided to do was dive up right next to them and smile and say, "Are you having a good day?" And kind of change up the expectation of the road rage. If we are never alone, you cannot know yourself. Recognize that making a choice of solitude is a choice that you can make, and it can be really helpful and meaningful. And if you go deeper and deeper into your own heart, you'll be living in a world with less fear, isolation, and loneliness. The season of loneliness and isolation is when the caterpillar gets its wings. Remember that next time you feel alone. So we're going to end our day today with a caterpillar exercise. I want to tell you, Christine, if you did play music during the tree exercise, we didn't hear it.
Yeah, so Zoom won't let me share audio while the slides are running, so I can share it, but not simultaneously.
Well,
I'm
then
happy to
let's
do whatever
stop
works
the
best.
share, because this is going to be an internal experience, so we don't need to share it.
Right.
So for a moment, get comfortable in your seat. Begin to breathe, and we're going to imagine ourselves on the journey to becoming a butterfly. Be aware of how you feel in this very moment right now. If you are a caterpillar eating through a leaf, you're that very hungry caterpillar, you're eating through a whole bunch of. Your goal at this point of being a caterpillar is just to grow. Build. You are very, very hungry. Soon you become tired, twice. And it's time for you to build your next temporary home. The effort that grows into building this cocoon takes the last of the energy that you have as you wrap yourself in the chrysalis. Once you're inside, you can begin to let go who you were, what you were before, what brought you to the moment. And until you can let go, you cannot transform. Being in that chrysalis, being in that moment, kind of allowing yourself to become goo, melting down, beginning to be constant, completely different being, growing into your new state as you build new wings that weren't there before. Your antenna forms and your wings become ready to loosen up from this chrysalis, from this cocoon, and emerge. When you're ready, begin to break through the cocoon, letting your colorful wings burst through, and you will then start to fly. Breathing. Imagine the first moment of soaring with your new wings, a little unsteady. Also so curious to explore and to see what's out there and to see other life forms and meeting up with other butterflies. You are ready to fly. You are ready to explore. You're ready to know yourself in connection to this world. Nature itself. In this moment, just take a moment as the music quiets to breathe and to feel what has emerged. And notice if you feel more ready to fly. And I want us to take a moment to catch our breath and share what that experience was like. And we have a couple of moments left. First of all, I just want to thank you so much for joining me and forming a special community today. I feel a sense of belonging, and I hope you do too. I hope you can take some of these exercises. I would encourage you to continue to journal, to look at what your lists of resources are, to look at the things that help you feel a sense of belonging, to name the things that contribute to your sense of loneliness, and see how you want to address them, so that then you can find that hope and connection. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. We really are so, so grateful for all that you've brought to us in this meaningful experience today.
Thank you. And thanks for making the space and the time in all of your very busy lives. Thank you. I understand what it's like to carve that out, but I hope you did this for yourself.
To wrap us up, we also want to share some additional thank yous as we wrap up our time together today. One is to extend our appreciation to you, our community, for your support, including for your generous donations that really enable us to continue to offer these free workshops each month. Thank you. We're also grateful to the Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture, who helped make our Hope series possible. Really, just thank you all for joining us today.